Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of Parenting Through the Parsha with Rabbi Matt Shapiro.
One of the consistent challenges I try to navigate as a parent is that different kids need different things. That there are certain things, of course, that I want to impart to my kids, certain things that are just generally true of being a parent that apply across the board. And of course, that at the same time, different kids need different things, and different kids have different challenges, different kids have different strengths. And so with each of my three kids, I can't just show up for each of them in exactly the same way, not because I can't, but because that's not what they each need from me. That each of them, when they're having a hard time, need something a little bit different. Each of them, when they need positive reinforcement, that looks a little bit different. Each of them, in terms of what they like to do and how they enjoy spending time with me, is going to be a little bit different. One of my kids might want me to read to them. The other one wants to play cards, right? Different kids just need different stuff. But that's not always easy. It'd be great if there was a one size fits all, certainly for parenting in general. And, with three kids in the same house, okay, I can just, copy and paste. But that's just not the case. And so it can be tough to try to sort that out. And throughout the book of Genesis, throughout VeYechi, which we're wrapping up this week with Parshat VeYechi, there is this consistent thread of the challenge in sibling dynamics, the challenge in parent and child dynamics, how to sort out birth order and different personalities. That's a consistent thread throughout the book. And fortunately, though there are certain ominous pieces at the end of the Parsha, as we are still in Egypt and we are going to have to figure out how to get out of there in the next book, the familial pieces wind up relatively neatly wrapped up by the time we get to the end of this book. And there's this extended scene at Jacob's deathbed where he blesses each of his sons and he offers them a different blessing for who each of them are. And as that scene is wrapping up, there's a verse that seems to be somewhat redundant in chapter 9, verse 28, that it seems to say the same thing twice, that Jacob is described as having said to them, V'zot asher diber lahem avihem, that this is what he said to them, their father, Vayvarechotam ish asher kavircha barechotam, that addressing to each of them, he offered them a blessing. This seems to be redundant. We don't need all these words. And according to our rabbis, of course, there is no phrase, there is no word, there is no letter in the Torah that's there by accident. So it has to be the case that it's there for a reason. Each phrase is there for a reason. And Rashi takes it in one direction. Rashi says that this is because this redundancy, it recognizes that he said something different to each of them. But the reason then we have the second phrase is because it's stressing that the words of blessing that Jacob offered to each of his sons, to Naphtali and to Zvulun and to Judah, the good stuff applies to all of them. That we should assume that if he said something nice to Reuven, it applies to Shimon as well. And it's not limited just to that one son, it applies to all of them. Which is a nice idea, right? He might not be able to say all of the words of blessing to all of them. He still wanted to get that moment with each of them individually, but the good stuff applies across the board. That's a nice idea. But I read an idea that struck me as more resonant from Reb Simcha Bunim, a Hasidic master, who actually inverts that idea. He says the first part is that it recognizes there's a general way of blessing, that there are certain blessings that we can and should offer to each of our kids that are true across the board. But since different kids are different, the seeming redundancy in this verse is because it's stressing the fact that each of Jacob's sons gets something a little bit different. That when it says, Vayvarechotam ish asher kabir chato, that when it says that he blessed them according to their individual blessing, it's specifically because everybody needs a different blessing. And I think that makes a lot of sense, that both are true. We can and should bring certain elements of our parenting to all of our kids. And there are also certain ways in which we need to be specific to each child. And even if you are a parent of one child, if you're a one-child house, I think that's still true, that you would think generally about what kids need, and you're still going to tailor that to your specific kid. And I think this is particularly resonant coming out of the narrative we've been navigating, that Jacob is finally, at long last, realizing that there should be that specificity in a way that this is tshuva. This is a different way of responding to the world, because it's not just about birth order. It's not just about a certain way that things should be. It's that individuals should be responded to as they are in the world. And that's a lovely message. It can be a challenging message, but it's an important one. And so as we come to the end of this book, I think we can say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, that we should be strong and we should be strengthened on both sides of this spectrum in terms of bringing the fullness of our parenting and our wisdom and our presence in a way that all kids deserve, and that we should also have the strength and the wisdom and the ability to meet each of our kids where they are at, for who they are in the world, to recognize that individuality and to offer the blessings and presence that they need for who each of them are.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.